You're listening to WCAT Radio, your home for authentic Catholic programming.
Welcome. My name is Frank Ambrosio, and I'm the director of the My Dante project at Georgetown University. Today it's my great pleasure to welcome you to a reading of the second canticle of Dante's Divina Commedia, voiced by Daniel Fitzpatrick. Danny will be reading his own translation of the poem, recently completed to honor the 700th anniversary of the great poet's death in the year 1321. Poetry is meant to be spoken and heard. Listen now as Dan Fitzpatrick reads the Purgatorio, the great story of the rebirth of human hope.
Hello and welcome back to the Dante in a Year podcast. My name is Danny Fitzpatrick. Let's continue with Dante's Purgatorio, Canto 22. Now the angel remained behind us, the angel who had borne us to the sixth gyre, who'd erased a fault from my visage. And he had called those blessed who hold justice their desire, saying simply, Sitiunt, without the rest, which I'll supply. And I was moving on, lighter now than in the other entryways, so that with little labor I followed the swift spirits up above. When Virgil commenced, Love, having been inflamed by virtue, ever inflames another, so long as its flame should plainly appear. So that from the hour that Juvenal descended among us in the limbo of the Inferno, and made plain your affection for me, my goodwill toward you was such as never pressed a person more for one he hadn't seen. So that now these steps will seem short to me. But tell me, and pardon me as a friend if I too securely slacken the reins, and as a friend now reason with me. How is it avarice found a place within your heart amid as much sense as you've ever fostered with such care? These words made Statius smile a bit at first, and then he responded, All you say is a dear sign to me of love. Truly, things so often appear as to give false matter to doubt, so that the true reason is hidden. Your question tells me you believe that I was avaricious in the other life, perhaps for that circle where I was. Know now that avarice was parted too far from me, and this false measure has punished me thousands of moons. And if I had not righted my care when I heard your cry there where, as if scourged by human nature, you say, In what do you not rule, O sacred hunger of gold, the appetite of mortals? I would feel the wheeling of the grim jousts. It then occurred to me that the wings may spread the hands too wide to spend, and I repented thus of that as of the other evils. How many will rise again with their locks shorn for ignorance, which takes away repentance of their sin during life and in our extremity? Know, too, that the fault that runs back directly opposite each sin is together with it here drawn dry of its green. So, if I have stood among these people who weep their avarice to purge myself, it's come to me for its contrary. Now when you sang the cruel arms of the doubled sorrow of Jocasta, said the singer of those solemn bucolics, in that which Clio described through you, it doesn't seem you'd yet been made fast to faith, without which good can't but fail. If it is thus, what sun or what candles so drew you from shadow that you later raised your sails after the fisherman? And he to him, You started me on the way toward Parnassus to drink of its pools, and your light drew me near to God. You did as one who goes by night, who bears the light behind and doesn't help himself, but teaches every person after, when you said, The ages are renewed, justice and man's first time return, and progeny descend from heaven anew. Because of you I was a poet, because of you a Christian. But so you might see better what I design, I'll stretch my hand to color it. Already was all the world so pregnant of the true belief, inseminate of the messengers of the eternal kingdom, and your words touched above sounded in harmony with the new preachers, so that I became used to visiting them. They came to me then to seem so saintly that, when Domitian persecuted them, their plaintive cries were not without my tears. And while it remained to me below, I came to them, and their upright customs made me disparage all other sects. And before I'd guided the Greeks to the stream of Thebes in my poetry, I'd had baptism. But for fear, I was a hidden Christian, demonstrating pagan life a while. And this tepidity made me circle the fourth cornice more than 4 centuries. You then, who lifted the sheet that so long obscured the good I speak, while we have the rest of this ascent, tell me where are antique Terence, Cecilius, Plautus, and Varro, if you know. Tell me if they are damned, and in what hole. Those and Perseus and I and many others, replied my leader, are with that Greek whom the Muses gave the breast more than any other, in the first ring of the blind prison. We often breathe speeches of that mountain where our nurses ever held sway. Euripides is with us, as are Antiphon, Simonides, Agathon, and many other Greeks whose brows were adorned of laurel. There among your characters are seen Antigone, Deiphile, and Argia, and Ismene as sad as she was. She may be seen who showed us Langia, and there are the daughters of Tiresias, and Thetis, and Didamia with her sisters. Now the poets both kept quiet, attentive anew to regarding all around, freed of ascents and of all walls. And now the day's 4 handmaids remained already behind, and the 5th was at the beam, directing its burning horn still higher, when my leader, I believe it might best suit us to bear our right shoulders to the edge, circling the mountain as usual. So custom was our leader there, and we took the way with less misgiving for that worthy soul's ascent. They strode ahead, and, alone, I was behind, and I listened to their discourse, which gave me understanding of the poet's art. But soon their sweet reasoning was broken by a tree that we found in the midst of the street, with apples smooth and good to smell. And as the fir diminishes as it rises from branch to branch, so that one narrowed downward, I believe, so no one could climb it. From the side on which our way was closed, a clear liquor cascaded from the tall rock and was spread upon the lofty foliage. The 2 poets pressed near the tree, and one voice within the fronds cried, "For this food you will hunger." Then it said, Mary thought more about the wedding feasts being furnished as wished than about her own mouth, which prays for you now. And the ancient Roman women, for their drink, were content with water, and Daniel disparaged food and acquired wisdom. The first age, as lovely as gold, made its acorns savory with hunger, and every rushet nectar with thirst. Honey and locusts were the living that nourished the Baptist in the desert, for which he is glorious, and as great as is apparent in the gospel. Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Dante in a Year podcast. See you next time for Dante's Purgatorio, Canto 23.
Hello, God's beloved. I'm Annabelle Mosley, author, professor of theology, and host of Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. I invite you to listen in and find inspiration along this sacred journey we're traveling together to make our lives a masterpiece and, with God's grace, become saints. Join me, Annabelle Mosley, for Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. God bless you. Remember, you're never alone. God is always with you.
Thank you for listening to a production of WCAT Radio. Please join us in our mission of evangelization. And don't forget, love lifts up when knowledge takes flight.